Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that's really quietly yet, profoundly reshaping our digital world. That's blockchain technology. It's moving far beyond just, let's say, cryptocurrencies now. It's actually guiding policy shifts, becoming a foundational layer for, well, everything from finance to healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission here on this deep dive is really to take all the sources you've given us, the articles, research, our notes, and just distill the most important stuff for you.
Right.
We're going to really focus on Algorand today.
Yeah.
How it works, under the hood, and some of its really surprising real-world impacts.
Okay.
Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, but without feeling like you're totally drowning in information overload.
Absolutely. A shortcut sounds good.
Yeah.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The global blockchain tech market, it was valued at $17.57 billion in 2023. But here's the really compelling part. It's projected to grow at this, well, astonishing compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 87.7% between 2024 and 2030.
87%. That's huge.
It's huge. And what's driving this massive acceleration, it seems to be largely enterprise demand. So yeah, let's unpack this.
Right. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that this isn't growth from, fleeting trends or some speculative bubble.
Not just hype.
Exactly. This is consistent foundational investment and adoption. Blockchain is now really underpinning critical operations in finance, logistics, healthcare, even the energy sector. It's truly transitioning, I'd say, from a niche innovation to, well, core digital infrastructure.
Okay, core infrastructure. With that incredible growth as our backdrop then, let's zoom in on Algorand.
Let's do it.
So it's a proof-of-stake blockchain, cryptocurrency, native token ALGO. Came out around April 2019. From a design perspective, what makes Algorand, so different? How does it actually tick?
Well, what truly sets Algorand apart is its core principle, something called cryptographic self-sortition.
Sortition.
Okay, imagine like a highly sophisticated private digital lottery system. It runs independently on each network node.
Right.
And this system ensures a truly random selection of a small group of users, they call them committees, to participate in the consensus process.
Committees, okay.
And the genius here is kind of twofold. First, the selection result. Easily verifiable once it's public, but, and this is crucial for security, no one can predict who's going to be selected ahead of time, not even, bad actors.
Okay. That unpredictability is key.
Exactly. And your likelihood of being chosen is directly proportional to the amount of ALGO tokens you hold. That's your stake in the network. So this sortition process, it's integral to Algorand's 3 very rapid consensus steps. First up, there's block proposal. A small committee, randomly selected, assembles and proposes a block of transactions for the next round.
Got it. Step 1.
Step 2 is proposals filtering, sometimes called the soft vote. Here, a new committee is selected, again through sortition, and their job is to reach what's called a Byzantine agreement on the highest priority proposal.
Byzantine agreement. Sounds complex.
It basically just means a group can reach consensus even if some members are unreliable or, actively malicious. It's a core concept in distributed systems.
Okay, makes sense. And step 3.
Finally, you have certify block, or the commit step. A final certify committee gets selected. They vote, reach another Byzantine agreement on the block's content, specifically ensuring its validity, like checking there's no double spending, that kind of thing.
Right, the crucial checks.
Crucial checks. And if consensus is reached, that block is instantly added to the ledger. Final. Done.
Wow, instantly. That sounds remarkably efficient, especially that instant finality bit. Now, you mentioned earlier Algorand's monolithic nature in tackling scalability. For those of us maybe not deep in blockchain architecture, what does monolithic actually mean here? What's the real advantage compared to other designs? This is where it gets really interesting.
Right. So monolithic basically means Algorand aims for scalability without sharding its validator set. Lots of other platforms use sharding.
Okay, so what's sharding then?
Think of sharding like breaking a huge database into smaller, more manageable pieces. Each piece or shard processes transactions separately to boost the overall capacity.
Okay.
The challenge, though, is then how do those pieces securely talk to each other and all agree on the network state? Algorand instead maintains this single, robust ledger. It doesn't fragment its security.
I see. So one big secure layer.
Exactly. And this design choice aims for what they argue is a fundamentally superior level of security across the entire network, that instant finality for every transaction, and the ability to handle synchronous transactions without delay. And it's, really important to grasp Algorand's unique stance here, especially when you look at how other big players are tackling the same problems.
Cool.
Well, Ethereum, for instance, it's famously moving from its energy-guzzling proof-of-work power to proof-of-stake, PIOS.
Right. The merge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Ethereum is heavily reliant on sharding to try and scale up and improve efficiency, aiming for, way higher transactions per second.
Okay.
Then you've got things like Hedera Hashgraph. It's not even a traditional blockchain. It's a dagger, a directed acyclic graph.
Right. Different structure.
Totally different. It structures transactions more like a web, allowing parallel processing. That can offer scalability benefits, sure, but it comes with its own trade-offs, like potential latency issues as the network grows, and some folks raise concerns about centralization because of their validator requirements.
Interesting trade-offs.
Right.
Anyone else?
Cardano is another big one. Also proof of stake, very focused on peer-reviewed research, layered architecture, but they have faced some criticism for maybe slower development timelines compared to others.
So Algorand's really carving its own path by sticking to that single secure layer approach.
Precisely. And it also stands out by being carbon negative since 2021. That's not just, a marketing bullet point.
No, that's a big deal now.
It really is. It addresses a major criticism of blockchain, the environmental impact, and positions Algorand as a leader in sustainable Web3, which is increasingly important for enterprise adoption.
Right.
Plus, their pure proof-of-stake mechanism. It doesn't directly pay participants for consensus like some others. Instead, it distributes ALGO's pro rata, which they argue fosters broader community participation.
And smart contracts.
Yep, Algorand smart contracts, ASC1s. They use a language called Teal, Transaction Execution Approvable Language. They execute trustlessly, entirely on-chain, and offer a pretty cost-effective and error-resistant way to enforce custom rules.
Okay, that's a really powerful technical foundation.
Yeah.
But the real test, right? And honestly, what most of you listening probably care about is, how does this fancy tech actually change things in the real world?
Yes.
Where are we seeing blockchain, and Algorand specifically, making a tangible difference today?
That is the critical question. And the good news is we're seeing these complex ideas translate into real benefits across, incredibly diverse sectors. Let's start with RWA tokenization, real-world asset tokenization.
RWAs, okay. Seeing that term everywhere.
It's about converting physical or financial assets, think bonds, real estate, maybe commodities, into blockchain-based tokens.
So digitizing real stuff.
Exactly. And this isn't just about moving money around faster. It's fundamentally reshaping capital markets.
There.
It unlocks liquidity for assets that are traditionally hard to sell quickly, like maybe a fraction of a building.
Right.
And it can democratize access to investments, usually just for big institutions. We've seen huge examples. BlackRock's BUIBL fund raised over $240 million tokenizing U.S. treasuries on Ethereum. HSBC launched tokenized gold trading for 247 settlement using blockchain. Even Hong Kong issued tokenized green bonds using blockchain for better transparency.
So finance is a big one. What else?
Then there are zero-knowledge proofs, ZKPs at scale. This is really cutting-edge stuff.
ZKPs. Right. Heard of those. Privacy tech.
Exactly. It lets one party prove they know something specific without revealing the underlying data itself. Huge for privacy and efficiency. Imagine proving you're over 18 online without actually showing your birth date.
Okay, that's useful.
Very. Visa tested ZKP-based auto payments on Ethereum for recurring bills without exposing private financial details. Governments are looking at it too. ZKPs could enable secure, anonymous online voting. Estonia's actually piloted this.
Anonymous voting, that's a big leap. Any other sectors being transformed?
Oh, yeah. We're seeing huge strides in decentralized identity DD solutions, empowering you to manage your own digital ID, choosing exactly what info you share. Big boost for security and privacy online.
Makes sense.
In supply chain and retail, blockchain brings transparency, prevents fraud. Think verifying luxury goods. Brands like Gucci, Balenciaga, already accepting crypto payments. It signals trust and authenticity.
Interesting. Retail, too.
The energy sector's innovating. Platforms like Sun Contract use blockchain for peer-to-peer electricity trading. Producers sell directly to consumers using tokens, cutting out the middleman.
Direct energy trading.
Healthcare.
Healthcare, securing patient records, streamlining systems. Algorand, that's Algorand's initiative in India, partnered with Siwa to launch a digital health passport for women in the informal sector. Gives them a secure, accessible health record, which many lack.
That's incredibly impactful.
Education, too. Securing academic records, verifying credentials instantly. Bainerics developed a blockchain education platform. Imagine your diploma being instantly verifiable, tamper-proof, anywhere in the world.
That'd save a lot of hassle.
Definitely. And maybe one of the most impactful society-wide is central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
Ah, CBDCs.
Right.
Big topic. Huge. Algorand's 2022 report suggested a hybrid CBDC model built on a private version of a public chain like Algorand using a two-tier system.
So central bank control, but distributed through others.
Exactly. Central banks maintain control, but licensed providers, banks, fintechs handle distribution. This is massive for financial inclusion, especially for people in the informal economy without easy access to traditional banking.
Right. Banking the unbanked.
Precisely. And it's not just utility, even culture. Australia's zoo used Algorand's carbon-negative tech for its NFT collection, showcasing uses beyond just digital art, linking digital assets to conservation.
Cool example.
So yeah, these applications offer really clear relevance, practical benefits, boosting efficiency, security, trust, access across so many parts of our lives and industries.
It's undeniable that blockchain promises immense value, and we're seeing these applications take hold. But, the path to widespread adoption, it's not exactly smooth, is it?
Not at all.
Which brings us to this crucial topic, something that really defines where the industry is right now, the decentralization paradox.
Yeah.
When you look at the hurdles in this paradox, what really stands out to you as the most pressing challenge?
Well, looking at the hurdles, it's often the practical roadblocks organizations hit, beyond just the tech itself. Things like integrating with old legacy systems, that's tough.
Yeah, man.
There's a real shortage of in-house blockchain experts. Deployment timelines can drag on way longer than expected. Regulatory uncertainty is still a massive factor.
Always the regulations.
Always. And sometimes unrealistic ROI expectations from stakeholders wanting quick, huge wins. But yeah, beyond those operational things, the decentralization paradox itself, that's fundamental.
Okay, explain that paradox more.
So despite blockchain's whole core idea, its ethos being decentralization and open participation, the actual governance structures of major networks often show significant centralization.
Right. It's built to be decentralized, but humans centralize it.
Kind of. It creates this paradox of trust. Blockchain aims to be trustless, removing intermediaries, right? But you still have to trust the underlying tech, the crypto, the math, the protocol itself. And crucially, you still have to trust the human actors, core developers, node runners, the foundations running things, even other users.
So trust hasn't vanished, it's just shifted.
Exactly. And we see this centralization play out in the consensus mechanisms. Proof of work. Big mining pools can control huge chunks of computing power, basically centralizing decisions.
Right.
Proof of stake. Well, the richest person, the biggest staker, can theoretically dominate the network just by holding the most tokens. So power often ends up concentrated with the select few, like core developers, who might have unilateral say over protocol changes.
Even if the system is supposed to be democratic.
Yeah, even in systems like Tezos, called self-amending, often only specific groups, like their bakers, actually get to vote on big changes. That creates information asymmetry, and not everyone's equally informed or empowered in the debate. And this also fuels economic centralization and market vulnerability. You hear about crypto whales.
Big holders.
Right. Individuals with massive holdings who can potentially manipulate prices, cause huge volatility. The Terra Protocol crash is a stark example. A huge swap of their stablecoin, UST, by a major player basically triggered a death spiral, price collapse, network shutdown, shows the power concentrated in just a few hands.
Scary stuff.
And despite all the talk of security, we've seen major hacks, right? Ronin Network, Poly Network, FTX, obviously, Wormhole. These incidents highlight vulnerabilities that can come from these centralized points of failure or just plain human error.
So given these tensions, this paradox, how do we move forward? Is there a way to get closer to that ideal of sustainable, truly decentralized governance?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? One interesting concept gaining traction is polycentricity.
Polycentricity out there?
Think of it like a city. Instead of one single central government trying to control everything, you have different neighborhood associations, each self-governing on local issues, but they all coordinate and interact for the good of the whole city.
Multiple centers of power, cooperating.
Sort of, yeah. It
Yeah.
describes a complex system with multiple governing authorities at different levels interacting. It allows participants to self-govern, manage common resources collectively, and ideally fosters cooperation over pure self-interest.
Interesting concept.
It really is. And it raises this big question for all of us involved in this space. How do we, as a community, make sure that blockchain's incredible potential for efficiency and innovation is actually balanced with its foundational ideals? True decentralization, trust, and fair, equitable participation.
That's definitely the challenge. Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground today.
We certainly have.
We started with Algorand's unique tech, the pure proof of stake, cryptographic sortition, that dove into all those real-world uses, from finance and RWAs to healthcare, even CBDCs. And wrapping up with these critical discussions about the decentralization paradox and maybe paths forward, like polycentricity.
And hopefully now you listening are equipped with a more, let's say, nuanced understanding. You can cut through some of the hype maybe and see how blockchain is genuinely evolving, not just as a money thing, but as a fundamental technology really shaping our future in very tangible ways.
Absolutely. And here's a final thought to leave you with, something to ponder. Given Algorand's specific focus, that monolithic design aiming for top-tier security and instant finality, and this ongoing industry push for genuine decentralization, what new areas, maybe ones we didn't even touch on today, might really benefit most from its unique blend of speed, security, and scalability?
Good question to mull over.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring this fascinating world of evolving technologies.